Peace. Appreciate everyone here. Starting the class and people are here on time. It's real peace. Already see some questions. Saladin, peace. It's a good question. I'd be more interested if you arrived at the question than really answering before I answer the question. There's a reason why I'm asking. Peace. Some of the students in the live chat, I sent emails to. I think I got everybody. It's actually one email I forgot this week, right? But I'll try to get that in as soon as I can. Again, this, just like every session of the Peace course that I teach, it all depends on the students and what they're asking, what they intend to do, what they want to know. And then a session is modeled around those things. Although there are a couple of things on the agenda that I do add on, obviously, as we go along, just to make sure that there's no wasted time. All right. Let me see if I have any other questions roaming anywhere else. Okay. All right. About musa. All right, so I'm going to take these questions as they come along in order, and I'm waiting for certain questions to come in. That way I can just attack them and think about them a little bit as they get situated here. So they only went berserk when they started to teach. They weren't berserk before. It takes a while to learn the stuff that you're going to preach, right? Yeah. Is that everybody? I'm assuming that everybody here is okay. If there's any problems and stuff, I never get the best sound when I'm doing this. You know, been trying to get it right, but old laptop, you know. Well, at least old when it performs this action, you know. You get all this buzzing with anything else. But one of the things on the agenda, as far as the focus, though, last week I talked a lot about, I thematically produced the session based on Poor Righteous Teacher, and we went through a lot of pedagogy and learning and things, and it evolved into a lot of great questions. So I pull out a lot of stuff because a lot of people don't really know how I've developed this Peace course over the years and the type of teachings. And so as we go along, and there's any kind of open air, I was going to say dead air like we do on radio, but that wouldn't really be fitting of this type of class, right? Dead air. But I'm going through these booklet of plus lessons. They're really majority of them my plus lessons that I share. But okay. What I really want to do is go through some of the foundation of the ways that I've been teaching over the years and some of the things that I've been sharing over the years, so you get a perspective of what you may have been missing. Okay, and remember, no one has missed anything that they weren't there for. Okay? If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? That's a question. Does anybody know? We'll give like a minute though. I'll answer that later. But I think I'll go through some of the protocol here. Maybe I'll go through some of the health protocol if we have some time. This is something I'm not giving out, but now it's becoming more and more relevant. Not something that I give out immediately, but something that's becoming more relevant. As you see that things go in crisis, what you see is the trend of social media, though, is everyone, as my man Napoleon the Legend, tweeted today, everybody becomes an expert on exactly the same tragedy that we're all dealing with. It's just amazing how many, how many generals there are. It gets real. But I saw the hardcover copy of As a Man Thinketh. When bookstores were a thing back then, they used to always, Barnes and Nobles used to really reissue As a Man Thinketh all the time as different looking paperbacks, pocket books, small little pocket books and stuff, all different ways and stuff, It's such a powerful book. And it's a repeater. You got to repeat it. You got to keep reacquainting yourself in it because you want to draw out different things. But, okay. And I think today I'm going to go through some of the books, just some of the ideas and the mentality in some of these plus lessons, particularly the 50-book beginner's list. This way you understand how to use it and how to read and what they're all about. But there's a lot of plus lessons I'd like to get through. And that is if we don't have, dead air. There are a couple of questions already, But yeah, don't worry about your aunt. If she's a preacher, she's a preacher. That's what she does. Right? There are some people that want to be helped. There are some people that are thirsty. They're okay with being helped with Kool-Aid. Would you rather them drink Kool-Aid or just dehydrate completely? This is the question. All right? The question was, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? And no one is there. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make a sound? All right? Yeah, stay hydrated though, right, Saladin? So you're gonna drink that Kool-Aid. Alain, peace. Well, let's see who else is building here. Yeah, okay. All right, peace, Kurt. Powerborn. I finally got back to Powerborn, right? Got him that email. Yeah, so everything is a little stiff, Even my flag lapel. I haven't worn this. I wore this every day. Now I put it on, and it actually was a little bit tight to fasten. Right? It was out of use. Right? Maybe a little sore that I haven't been using. But let's see. Okay, I'm collecting a question from Facebook. Right. All right, so let's build here. Some of the answers. Cure. Right. Peace, Darkin. Yeah. Oh man. when you build for a long time, when you teach, for a long time in a structured classroom setting and things like that, I think that you do miss the human interaction. But the best way to have an interaction here is to start out by everyone taking note of the things that we are doing. So the last class, though, and to make it as structured as possible. So in the last class, this wasn't really like I wouldn't say a homework assignment that someone would do, but something to keep in their mind. This is a long assignment, an everlasting one. But last session, I had talked about making the name, and that it basically answers two questions: what am I? I am, right? And what will be? I will be. And if you constructed your name well, at least to yourself, it should answer those things to you as you use it and build with it. Yeah, I think PowerPoint, some of the PDFs that you asked me, I didn't have. I know there was, but yeah, the Christian Murdy books. Yeah, you know what? I keep. Yeah, it's Yeah, the first question. Where was that first question from Saladin? I pasted it already in the notes. The Born degree in the 140 and the concept of cognitive dissonance, right? It's a good question. I was waiting for you, Saladin, to describe why and the reason why you came up with that question. The reason I'm saying that is because I'm pretty sure, just guessing here, that if you describe what so supreme scientist, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. You know what I mean? Hopefully I just sound like a real, dirty 1993 demo, grimy in some respect, but I don't know. So if you're asking about the Born degree and the 140 and cognitive dissonance, if you just define cognitive dissonance, and I looked it up, right? So that way I could read it to everybody instead of explaining it. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. Okay? And when we use the word cognitive dissonance, though, it doesn't really give you like the way the word is used. Or I didn't look to see if they use it in a sense. No, in this particular thing, they didn't use it in a sense. But the cognitive dissonance usually happens because of something happening. And then there's the reaction of it, though. The person having these inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitude, based on that. So when we look at the Born degree, just looking at that, it should pretty much answer it, right? If we're led to believe that something else should be worshipped in the sky, something else is causing this reality, and then we apply that to things. So what we do is we try to find a logic in something that's incorrect, and then we build, fallacious solutions, to compensate for that. So that is a form of cognitive dissonance. So it's just, it's so consistent, though, that as history shows, it becomes very functional, right? It definitely becomes very functional. Okay, I'm copying and pasting another question, but yeah. So the thing is, it's the perception of sound, right? When we're going back to the question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? The point of the question is really like it's really a koan, the effect, because the whole point of the question is to show that it really is irrelevant. right? You know? Yeah, so the shit doesn't make a sound because the point is that you're not there, right? So it counts if you're there. Someone's there to witness it, you know? Yeah. I don't know how old your aunt is though, but it's kind of yeah. Don't worry about that. You know what I mean? Like you think that. Listen, you think that these times are very real. So people's gonna deal with whatever they deal with. You know what I mean? The truth of things is not really going to be useful. Sometimes the belief in things is going to be more useful for people. You know, so let's not worry about that. This again goes back to last week's session though about the ideas of a teacher. Are you trying to, first I don't know if I generalized it this simple last week, which I probably should have, I guess, now that this is coming to the forefront. But every time someone asks a question or like a problem or reality is posed where someone says something incorrect, the first thing that I think is like, is it really worthwhile to even answer this? You know what I mean? Who is going to get the understanding? Who's going to get the usefulness? You know what I mean? Right? So, that's the whole point. Yeah. Yeah, Dark Kim. Yeah, Dark Kim. Yeah, you're right though. But we're not talking about you. We're talking about damn tree falling. So it doesn't count about you. We're talking about just an old tree. Talking about if Dark Kim builds and no one's around, does it still qualify as a build? Yeah, it does. Yeah, because you were hearing it though, so that's different. It's a little different though if you put yourself in it, right? Because then in this case, though, only the tree could say that they heard themselves, right? Yeah, so yeah, they're supreme with the sound is the human experience of wave disturbance. Yeah, So basically, we've exiled trees from the existence of the reality of it. So it makes it all fair. You know what I mean? But all right, let's go to these counter conversations. Hey, Saladin, does that answer a little bit of it? Somewhat of it. Let me quickly get on to musa and stuff. And mind you, sometimes when I'm building with the degrees here, the classroom here is for the individuals that are here, and the individuals are telling me where they're at. You know what I mean? Right, Dark Kim. Yeah, you're right, Dark Kim. But I don't care about the animals, though. Yeah, this is unfair to animals and stuff. I don't give a shit about the animals when it comes to that question. Yeah. Apparently, it's a random forest with only one tree. There are no fungus. There's no life. There's no bugs. Nothing. So no one can experience it. It's really like let's keep it koan level. But yeah, but I think the question that question is more not really a science question. It's more of a metaphysical question. So it doesn't matter about how we measure sound, right? Yeah, it is a magical forest, though. It's absolutely magical. Yeah. Absolutely magical. The whole point was to show that you're not there. Right? Like the famous koan where two students are arguing though whether the wind blows the flag or the flag is what's pushing the wind, and the master smacks them both on the head, and it doesn't matter because he says it doesn't matter whichever one is right, because it's really you right now, both of yous, that are causing that flag to move, right? So we know that one of the students was right; it was the wind. But the whole point was that they're arguing about bullshit though, and it only has an existence because we are experiencing that existence. So that was the whole point of that time. Right? So yeah, that's why the sound in the forest thing. The truth is that if the tree falls in the forest, it's making a sound whether you're there or not, because there's so many other living things that experience it. Right? 1,000 men going over, but is that a koan too, or is that just like answer? Freedom protesters that want to stop the quarantine, right? right, so let's see. The other question. All right, I think it was Y60, right? Let's see. Word 60, yeah. Where is it? I think I put it in my notes. Let me look at my notes. I'm already lost in all the great comments. All right, build on Musa and the tricknology he taught him, though. Yeah. First of all, right, except for the lessons and stuff, you know, like you're not going to research in a book yet. I don't think. I haven't found it. The details, you know, of Musa. Now, I had a student asking me a good question, you know, about Musa and the two Musas, you know, the many Musas. Musa is a title. That's the first thing. Probably the most impactful book that immediately shows that is Stone Legacy, you know, and I was going to give the page number, but now with the digital format and then with new edition, there's a new edition of the book. So it's every page I keep throwing people to is all off. But it is in there, you know, and it shows that it was a title given to those who are teaching, who are leading him. I think it was leading him to water, you know, right? What the name meant. And the point was this, right? What is it in your research when you look at the culture degree in the 1 to 14, right? That's answering the question, right? But when you want to get into more detail, right? Or give yourself more detail, what you're really asking is like, if they were doing devilishment and immediately exiled, right? Means that they were ineffective, right? They were immediately exposed as devils, whatever, inconsequential, useless to the society, right? Then that means that what happens is that now the goal isn't Musa's goal then, right? If this is indeed like, you know, a prophecy and they have to rule and they have to do what they're going to do, his goal isn't just his goal is to civilize them. And a lot of times we take that to also mean, and we equate civility with righteousness. Though. This is an important thing to notice, though. And this is what books like 48 Laws of Power and other books and Book of the Courtier and, you know, all these old books try to show you that civility not to be directly associated with righteousness. Okay, the core of an individual doesn't show his integrity, right? The way they present themselves, the way that they are, right? And that's the whole point about civilization. You may act a certain way, but it doesn't mean that you are civilized. It doesn't mean that you are righteous, though. It means that you are civilized. So when it says that Musa taught him civilization, it means what? Well, it means that he has to give him the skills to go back into the society, to present themselves to the society as people that would be worthwhile to join the society. So what would be probably the first thing that they would need is to immediately show that they wouldn't, they would need to know tricknology because they would need to lie about their ultimate intentions. They would need to show and hide their deeper intentions, but show that they were actually of value to the society that would take them in, okay? And that's what it means by build homes for themselves, because in the culture degree, because it didn't say that, you know, it doesn't mean that Musa went up there and he taught them all to be Jesus-like and be carpenters and stuff like that, right? But that's not what that means, right? And they all came just hammering shit, you know? What it really means is that they were taught how to deal with society. So the building with the homes, right? Building homes for themselves, right? How to teach, I'm paraphrasing, right? Building homes for themselves, right? It's really where you get most out of it, piecewise with it, right? It's really where they get the answer. It's really where your main answer, like what was it that was being taught? We're not there. We didn't know exactly the curriculum, right? Or how is the curriculum, but he's teaching them how to navigate. You know what I mean? So when we said build homes for themselves, present themselves, right, as useful to the society. society that they are about to, or not about to, are trying to engage with. Okay, and you know that's why these degrees, like the Born degree, uh, you know the Born degree in the 1 to 14, and you can even contrast that with the 10th degree. These are all degrees that talk about how we dealt with the devil. You know what I mean? Whether we allowed him straight in or we didn't. Um, but let's see. Right. Yeah. Build degree, the build degree in the 1 to 14, right? You know what I mean? And those are like the facets, the principles of how they conduct themselves. You know what I mean? They won't really show themselves, right? So it's all in the 1 to 14. That's why the 1 to 14 is very it shows you a lot of the technicalities of their behavior, what's expected of them, how we were, you know, how we were engaging with them. You know, the 1 to 14 is really, the 1 to 40 though becomes a lot different, right, as we go along. But I'm trying to think of good ways, immediate books, because I'm really, you know, I could just mouth off the Sartima works and others, but I'm trying to think of a immediate book that would show that. It's not coming to my head right now. But what's interesting, what I'm thinking about is the Mongolian Empire. Many of the European countries that they had the ability to actually invade and take over, they chose not to. But there wasn't much in the research I had, which is very limited. It's not very many books. You know, Genghis Khan just didn't want to engage with them. You know, didn't want the hassle of them. So, you know, that shows a lot about what was going on. So this is, you know, a lot of the rules and regulations that sound in the context. See, when you're teaching people, the context of this, though, that, you know, there are rules and stuff. We don't really look at those things because we've been fooled by the current civility, that countries throughout history haven't really decided how to do certain things in such an extreme way. But that is the case when we go through history. And that is the case, though, even, you know, through history. Like, you know, so when we talk about the devil and the 6,000-year rule, it's an assumption that original people in their societies and the selective societies throughout of original peoples has always agreed about allowing that to further itself. You know, we could maybe give, you know, the Moors and societies of that nature, as, you know, societies and groups of men, women, and children that were very much into that, you know, born degree, you know, putting the sword over them, teaching them, civilizing them, furthering this. But there's many that just didn't engage, like the Mongolian Empire, which is what's in my head right now, you know. Because they let him around to steal his ideas. Okay, when you mean by let him, who do you mean by let him, and then who do you mean by his ideas? Just so we're clear. Sometimes when, you know, just as a grammar note, like, especially when you're talking and stuff, you want to speak clearly and stuff, and that's why I'm doing this, because I could assume what you meant, but I want everybody to practice being as clear as possible. When you're speaking about two different peoples, or more than two, or even three sets of peoples, or individuals, or groups, be careful that you don't over pronoun your stuff, like, and say, you know, he went over here and then he got him and then they did this with them. That could be confusing to people as they follow. So, you know, be used to, you know, realigning and saying who the pronoun is that we're talking about. It could seem like extra speech sometimes, but it could be confusing, as it is in this sentence, though, too. because now I'm going to always assume that the person that's reading is going to assume that you're in line with their way of thinking and fill in those pronouns, but they could be filled in any kind of way, right? So that's something to take note of when you're building and stuff, and just about general things, right? Let's see. All right. Yeah, one of the gods, Quan, peace to God. I don't know if he's on the stream right now, but he was throwing some questions in Facebook about the born degree relating to different empires and stuff. When you mentioned the Ottoman Empire, truthfully, I don't know much about the Ottoman Empire to just talk about off the head on it. So I only know general ideas about it, but that's actually good for my own research, you know. I see where you're going at, Hanif. Yeah, you know what's interesting, and I'll say this, as well, since we just reading a comment here. Okay, good understanding. One thing that's interesting about the RZA, right, is that he, if he would have said that, I don't know, did you give like a time when he said that? I mean, I don't know when you asked that, to RZA, like when, but when RZA speaks, as he has like in his recent Uprocks is the station on YouTube, I think it's called Uprocks, and Talib Kweli does a podcast, and he interviewed RZA, shortly after his battle with DJ Premier. One of the things that's interesting about when RZA builds, okay, yeah. One thing that, so this probably is the effect of that, you know what I mean? Because you also adapt to the social circles you're in, though, you know what I mean? You would hope that we all have to be in it, but not of it, and definitely not be it. But sometimes you adapt, and sometimes you're I think, and I'm being very critical here, you know what I mean? Because I think that one of the things that we should understand, though, is that when we look at people with the knowledge of stuff that have become famous and things like that, and we look at and we say they had an era, they had this, how many of us, though, have taken a larger platform to build on our ideas? Sometimes just building on the Facebook or even doing a YouTube page is probably one of the first times that we'll be even taking a form, And one thing about the artist or any individual that is used to having a form is that many quotable and posterity, you know what I mean? In other words, it doesn't matter if they corrected themselves or they developed in such a way where they even admit that they developed off of that, they still are being quoted from what they said before. And one of the things about the RZA, the reason I mention this is that you should look at brothers like the RZA and others as really good case studies, not so much to just bomb them only, but more importantly to use them as case studies for ideas, because RZA in his interviews, and this interview with Kweli, he says things that I don't agree with, and I find him to be completely incorrect in the frame of mind of thinking. And yet, I also acknowledge that it is most likely possible, let's put a thing out there, most likely possible that the reason that he says certain things, right, is because of this knowledge of self and the history that he learned is being analyzed in such a way, you know what I mean? Let me take a pause here with that build about RZA. Would you recommend reading, I don't know what Honorable Minister Farrakhan's books on the relationship between blacks and Jews? I never got my hands on that book, but I would read it. Yeah, why not? You know what I mean? It certainly would probably have some insights, some things to disagree and agree with, and sharpen your perspective of ideas, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, why wouldn't you read it? Yeah, I think last session somebody asked me about Minister Farrakhan. Just because I said I don't agree with everything he says or anything like it, doesn't mean that, I wouldn't ask people to research on and stuff. No matter what, I think he's part of history, so you should know about him anyway, right? Just because. He is, yeah. And let me build on this further self, right? What I mean is this, right? You'll see it in the interview with Kwali, but you'll see it in other interviews. Often Riza builds with a perspective of being a complete American and shedding any of the everything else as a prefix. So no African American, Puerto Rican American, Asian American, whatever it is, just shedding all of that. And also being extremely pro-USA, where this is a special place that is nowhere else. And he mentions these things that we can do, these privileges that we have, and things like that. So the main problem with that is that perspective is actually very naive and actually very whitewashed. No matter what Riza says about it, his perspective is very whitewashed, right? yeah. Definitely. I would definitely say that, though. You know what I mean? But see, the reason I'm saying analyze like the way that he's building is because no matter what we say, right, Darkim, the framework of how he's speaking, the dialect structure, the pedagogical approach, though, of being able to speak directly to individuals, which he does very well. He never speaks above you; he speaks directly at you, right? Is really from what he was taught as 5%. You know what I mean? And I think that what makes a lot of the builds off, and that I get it so much so, is that he mixes a lot of the I don't want to say humanity, though, and exaggerate it, but let's say like I'm gonna say the ultra extreme humane approach that Buddhism offers, right? He mixes that in, you know what I mean? And what you get, though, is an extremely a very blind pro-American point of view, where this is a wonderful place to be, though, if you only use it the right way. And that's not really how the world has worked. And if we're understanding the U.S. of any type of proper, yeah, Dark Kim with the fucking boomerang right now. You know? Yeah, he does. He mixes civility with righteousness. Yeah, he boomerang my own thing I wrote, you know? But he mixes in a lot of the Buddhism and that humane aspect of Buddhism, where the problems of humanity are not being imposed. They are only our visions of suffering that need to be let go. And that's such a naive point of view. And just me particularly being of a Puerto Rican background, being of a, having an immediate colonialist background from the United States, Puerto Rico's still a colony. And in the last couple of years, Puerto Rico's suffering drastically because it's a colony. And that's the direct reason. It just sounds crazy what he's saying. And that all of the privileges and possibilities of privileges that he talks about are actually at the expense of others. So like the privileges and the greatness that we experience in the United States, though, is something that we cannot be experienced anywhere else. But it is also something that is experienced only because it derives its power to give us these privileges and forms by the exploitation of others, though. So if it did not exploit others, it would not know, and never has not ever had a framework to produce these forms and privileges for us here, if it didn't do that oppression in these other places throughout the world. And we could say throughout the world, because the world pretty much is the entire gamut of the U.S., empire. And so what really happens, though, is that even on a hip-hop perspective, RZA loses all of his grit this way. Loses all of his grit because the form that he uses as hip hop is no longer countercultural. It's not even subcultural anymore. It's pop infused because it's not. It's for a forum where everyone is welcoming and it's it's famous. It's fantasy land. He gives you a fantasy land. You know what I mean? Yeah. He gives a fantasy land. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just read that out loud. When a person gets a good enough position in the system of oppression, then they are ready to participate. And off at the most intense level where they enforce or reinforce the system. Darkin, that's that's it in a nutshell. You know what I mean? And boy, it's kind of it's always disappointing. It's always disappointing, when RZA talks that way. You know what I'm saying? Because he does have great insight, and he does have the gifts of being a teacher. He has a teacher's gifts, and a lot of those are in the way that we learn. So, his clarity, his diction, his way of bringing things to in a personal level. You know what I mean? In other words, he has a tendency to really well. He does this really well. He builds on a very micro level, about macro things. The only problem is that he makes the macro, the larger perspective, seem so Candyland that you're like, this shit doesn't even go. You know what I mean? Right? But right, yeah, I made it so you can make it. Yeah, how it's intriguing how the anomaly is the only one that pitches that kind of point of view, and also it's a lack of humility too. I call it a lack of humility on RZA's part because it sounds humble, but it's really not, because I consider humility not in just the judgment of what you are not great at or what you cannot do, but also the judgment in what you have done and valuing the greatness of what you've done. And to reach the peak that he did things that no one was able to do. And it also combined in the perfect storm. Because what if, what if the MCs that he brought just weren't good enough? What if they all collapsed? What if they were just average? It changes the whole perspective. It's not really a movement, and there's lots of examples of big movements where the talent just wasn't there, and maybe the leader of the talent was very good, So, but it's something. So when, I'm not saying don't listen to RZA though. I'm saying, if you listen to it with that lens, you make it useful. You know what I mean? But for me personally though, a lot of times I can't really, I literally can't finish when he starts that American shit, When he starts that pro-American shit, like like these things were fought for, right? These freedoms, right? But let's go to, everybody asked all their questions, but there was a question, and I wanted to build on it because I'm going to say this 1,000, and it links up with the 5%media.com, okay? Now, I'm one of the people that is as part of the 5% media, like that nucleus that is helping to launch the 5% media. I will admit though, and I admit to the core, some of my work will have I think I'm probably, let me put the link here. Some of my, a lot of my work on the 5% media thing is going to be, more longer articles and stuff, because I don't really have time to write a million news pieces. For some reason, that takes me a long time because my mindset is not in that quick news briefing set, right? But let's see. Let me go back. I have some thoughts here about what I just said. It was perfect times that we're in the MCs. Yeah, absolutely, Sally. Absolutely. And there's no taking away from the magnificent, musical skill and everything that RZA did is a legend, and he's, like I said, that battle was the two goats, the most accomplished and the most talented, humility and the value of the greatness of what you've already done. I'm trying to understand what you. I'm glad. I like when what I said was totally confusing. And right. So humility has two things, right? Humility is usually gauged as a person, right, not gloating over their accomplishments, right? But when we look at humility as a function, right, humility as a personal function, let's see, i.e., yeah. No. If you get confused about something, please ask. So I'm deliberately saying things a little bit deeper. I want people to help make me rewind and we go back. You know what I mean? Hopefully, it could be like a good record here. You know what I mean? But humility is also a personal function when we talk about it. Like, in other words, right? Example, humble about the stature one has accomplished, right? So what I mean is, like, someone, they achieve things and they don't say, oh, look, they don't do the Twitter thing with rappers, right? They don't go, listen, this is my new album, I'm a legend, that's it. And then they click, go buy it. That would not be the opposite of what we think is humble, because it's like, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Like, it's no way you're a legend just off, you just shared it, right? And it is a key. And what I mean by how is the key, the way I see it, is that humility is the proper judging, right, of your level of accomplishment and your level of excellence, or your level of excellence and also your level of skill, and knowing that the two don't always happen to link, right? So let me write it down. So it's like humility rewind is an honest its achievement and its achievement. I'm blank here. Okay, so it's an honest measure of your accomplishment, meaning both two things. It's achievement, accolades, awards, right? And then also its actual skill level. So when someone's being humble, right, they're basically ranking, well, this is what I've received off what I've done, but this is where I see where I'm at, though. A real honest measure of where you truly at with your level of skill and talent and whatnot, right? Where you need to be, right? The truth is that if someone is humble and they see themselves as much lesser than they are doing themselves a disservice, right? Because then they won't see the greatness of what they can do. But if someone is overly, lacks all humility, then they think that everything they're doing that really isn't all that great is exceptional. And of course, the level of accolades, awards, and stuff can inflate that, i.e., bad musician receives all of these, right? So, I forgot who we're using as the main example of humility. Yeah, but in many respects, if the humility is, I'm forgetting who we're using, how we're using with RZA, but I think in many respects, if the person doesn't really judge if their humility is not of a good measure, they're not really going to know what they can do and what they shouldn't be doing and what they're great at. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. And you notice that all of these levels of humility can be negative and positive. If you judge yourself too low, or if you judge yourself too highly, it's both incorrect measures of humility. You know, so that's what I mean. You know, it could be a problem though. And he says, once you realize the greatness you have achieved is accessible to anyone who puts in the work that you have put in, it shows that you don't consider yourself above anyone. Yes, it does, right? But at the same time, though, someone has to be. It's an yeah, this is what I meant with RZA, because in that case, it sounds good, but when RZA applies that incorrectly, what you just said, he implies incorrectly. In his mind, what he has achieved is something that anyone can achieve on any other level. That's not how it works. Someone can achieve the level of greatness, of technical excellence of a field, right? As far as creation, creating things, making things in a different field, just as good as RZA. But because the society, let's say, for example, it doesn't reward that type of field, then it won't matter. They will have difficulty in the society, okay, of a massive level, okay? So I'll give you an example to make it home to the RZA thing. There is almost no way that, let's say, a writer, you know, about the music, a writer creating in that music's vein as myself, could reach that level of RZA, because the works that I make don't sell the way his works do. Just like a scientist, Nobel Prize level of intelligence and skill level isn't going to achieve the same heights in society monetarily and with privilege as a RZA. Okay, so that's what I mean, though. So like, when he puts this all in one boat, though, to me it's a lack of humility to not see himself in many respects as an anomaly, you know, and just as a thinking in any kind of way. No one's come close to accomplishing what he's accomplished in music. It's anyway. So, you know, if he doesn't see himself as an anomaly, then he's not looking at even his own career in the correct way, right? Yeah, I guess so. You would think Saladin in the middle, right? And that would be another Buddhist precept, right? The middle path. But sometimes humilities need shots in the arm. So sometimes somebody could be really low and they need to go real high. You know what I mean? So it's a fluctuating thing, though. Sometimes you have to realize how great you are and you have to stand on that. Sometimes you have to realize that the greatness you've achieved, though, really is jack shit in the grand scheme of things and keep you level-headed. You know, so in all those respects, you know. So you have to constantly revisit yourself, though. You know, so it's about how you go back to that middle ground, how you shoot yourself back up or shoot yourself back down from that middle to that middle ground. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Right. And self, you know, yeah, you know, when we say things like, you know, when we acknowledge your humility, understand that, like, this is not easy for anyone, right? Humility is not easy for anything. Once all of you, and one of the goals of this course has always been to find the talents within the individuals, you know, the exceptional talents that you have. And one of the things that happens is that a lot of times once you realize the talent that you have, though, it is, you know, it could be intoxicating. And not with reward, but just like you've never realized you were that great at something, you know, and you love it. So, you know, understand that a lack of humility is something that plagues everyone, you know, or too much humility is something that plagues everyone. Right? It's not where you're always going to be even killed with that. You know? That's like saying, like, when, you know, like when we say, you know, I destroy the 4 devils and shit. So so you're never going to be jealous of anyone. You're never, ever hating anyone, you know, that's not real life. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, Dark Him, yeah, definitely. Some is given, you know what I mean? And that's why life sucks. He's not. Yeah, definitely. Difference from field to field, area of study, experience, in case being sound Google. Yeah, you know, and nothing is more incredible to the ego than getting knowledge of self. You know what I mean? right? Absolutely. You know what I mean? Well, technically cured, perfection, I do teach perfection, so it does exist. Perfection is something that's always ongoing. So perfection literally is endless progress, right? Because that's what we are. We're always living, always being true and living. So true living is always imperfection. Perfect is a description of something that already is and will cease to, has already ceased to continue. It is perfect. You know what I mean? It's a past tense. It's done, right? So perfection literally is the progress, right? The nature of the progress. Absolutely, yeah. You know, remember where you started, or even to where you need to be. So sometimes you reach this level, but you also have to see how much greater you can go. You know what I mean? And sometimes that, and see it and it's really not linear. That's why I say it's not linear. Like, for example, right? Use the RZA is such a good example. RZA made this much music to reach this level. So, unlike, let's say, Premier, he's a good example because RZA really tried to veer off and do different kinds of music, right? Most of this music, especially in the last 10 years, has been so experimental and mainly lacking any kind of grit because of his views, really probably because of his views being so pandering that it doesn't have any grit. So if he is to actually come back, he has to continue in the direction he's in, which is thinking outside the box with different music and stuff, which is not the error in his ways and other genres, but it's also going back full circle. So it's, if we were doing it linear, he'd be going in two directions, in two different ways. That's why the process is more a circular process, you know what I mean? Going back to go forward, and the progress is one of depth, not necessarily one of linear look, so don't think of things so linear, you know what I mean? Right? Even with this knowledge though, like when people say going back to knowledge though, I don't see it always in line fashion. I see it as going back in a circle, you know what I mean? Going back. So this process is about depth, you know what I mean? It always adds depth. Right? Absolutely. What I'm getting the idea though is everybody in here is really smart today. You know what I mean? So in my own humility, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, right? But yeah, see that, yeah, lowering yourself would just be a poor choice of word, not the best choice of word. And that's why it would be more like going back in a circular fashion, like the cipher getting more profound, you know what I mean? So even when I say, like, the definition I always use, perfection is constant elevation at an ever increasing rate. Every time I say that, I'm not looking at linear. I'm looking at the depth of the cipher developing. You know what I'm saying? It grows deeper. Right? All right. So I was getting into a new topic, and then I reared off the topic again, as we were talking about humility. Humility. How should I write it in notes? Humility and the RZA selling out. No, too harsh. I'll just write humility. Right? I'm being nice. Right? You know what I mean? Some days, yeah. So yeah, Doc Kim. Some days, yeah, Doc Kim. You be on this every day, so like you would know the fluctuation of day to day, though. You know what I mean? Yo, let me tell you something. I love teaching. I love sharing, though. But when we talk about humility, the majority of the time, though, I am usually not in the thought process of teaching. I always feel like I don't know anything. So, and I'm obsessed with reading and writing. So I'm usually questioning what I know, and usually in the laboratory state of mind. And even Darkin knows, like when I'm in the cipher, I'm usually not talking. You know what I mean? I'm usually doing the knowledge and stuff. You know what I mean? No, what we were disagreeing with, the lowering oneself. You know, it would literally be more better going back around to knowledge as opposed to lowering oneself. You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's what I meant by the poor choice of word, not your choice of word. What we were talking about with supreme scientists. Okay. Yeah, no, it's just that the word is diverse, right? So if we son somebody, right, and we fault him and we tell him like, yo, your ego is just pathetic and it's way out there, we're making him humble himself. That would be, humbling yourself. But the truth is that I'm saying it's like a daily reality, a daily thing. We're always dealing with humility, so always going back around to check, and making sure that everything we know from the past and everything we're going to go get in the future is infused with everything that we're about. And that's what happens when we hear, for example, it goes back to when we hear RZA make comments or make music that seems out of touch. It's because it's not in touch with the whole reality of what he seems to have learned. So we hear and we listen musically and in what he says, a break in that. And that's the problem. You know what I mean? But I see this question. I'm gonna answer it though. Okay. Okay, I want to answer that question. But yeah, he's born being Alvin Gonzalez here. Humility requires letting go of knowledge so new ideas can flow. The essential knowledge remains from my experience. Right. Yeah, when you define it like that, a lot of people will cringe because we say letting go of knowledge, we think we're letting go of something. But a little thought and idea, a lot of times the knowledge you think you have has already become corrupt because you've had it so long that now you're believing it though. This is some Christian murder used to always talk about, you know what I mean? And that's a little reminder to Bourne. I gotta email him those Christian murder books. I'm gonna give you I think that was what I had to mail Bourne. But if that's it, just let me know, Bourne, just so I remember Power Bourne, if I had to mail you those books. But the other Bourne, when we say that, like, if knowledge is actually knowledge, then none of it should leave. All of it should be used. So it would be more like temporary useful information, temporary information. You know what I mean? But I think it's more like the challenging of knowledge, because everything gets piled upon in life. So once you get knowledge and it becomes a core, you start gathering things on top of it that become part of how you use it. So what happens is that core knowledge, you're not really testing it. You're using it as a foundation of truth. And so it's good. I don't have to test it anymore. Like, the knowledge degree is correct, so I don't ever have to test it again. And what happens is that you never really come with better, more solid proofs. And you end up encountering situations where you needed more information. You needed more insight to why the original man is God, to why you don't really have why he's the father of civilization. You just, kind of believed a truth. And the truth is, a lot of people believe a truth. They don't really know the truth, because once they know it, you can let it go and not really add on to it. So some things are a life teaching, in that respect, right? But let me try to answer these in order though. Because I wanted to talk about 5% media, and I wanted to talk about the question that Self asked. It's a very good question. How do I teach my daughters? I'm going to answer my thing about my daughters as the Nas song is in my head now, because now I'm going to have hip hop over here. But lessons coming on. Yeah, that is humility. In many respects, though, because the father could have been egotistical. You know what I mean? Been like, yeah, I'm the only Allah here. You know what I mean? but he was analyzing things with understanding, you know. Mm-hmm. What I would say is the assumption of knowledge, right? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Right, because I always say this, so I've always said this. This is a student. One facet of a student is one who is willing to be wrong about anything at any moment. Now, that doesn't entail the process by which they gauge what's wrong or right, though. It just means that they have that framework, that mentality. You know what I mean? We would hope that they develop the methodology to make sure that, you know, they're wrong or right about certain things, right? And that becomes the really good student. But let's see, what are we talking about here? Yeah, one question real quick. That way I could continue. You said, how do you think megastars like Michael Jackson and Prince could have saved themselves by using more humility? Shit, I think those are two stars that probably got killed. So I don't know if they were being they needed to be humble. You know what I mean? Right? These are people that questionably, you know, their deaths are very questionable. You know, people say they would, you know, using drugs. Prince was using drugs and stuff like that. But boy, he was a real prolific drug user. Sheesh. You know what I mean? He was using destructive drugs, and he was one of the most constructive and useful people. I don't know if a lot of people followed Prince after Purple Rain, but his career is lengthy. You know, to put it mildly. You know what I mean? I have all of his albums, and it's over 500 songs. And the only time you see artists rival that is in hip hop, where they could, you know, now they could release all the time what they want. But even in the jazz era, where like certain legends were always re-recording and all the time, but where recordings became more album oriented, you know, since the, you know, once the 60s come and you see album oriented rock and you see album oriented albums, you don't see that kind of prolific kind of work. So I don't know, when you listen to Prince musically, I don't know. I would say that's some of the most humble music I've ever heard. There's constantly learning going on when you listen to his music. There's constantly new things being done and experimented with. You know what I mean? And with Michael Jackson, though, you always seem to be learning, right? You know, he always seemed to be doing new things and trying new things, right? So we would, you know, that's them two literally is the end of the humble musician, right? Because, and I'm judging them mainly on their music, because they kept on changing the framework of what they were doing, though. They even in that pop realm, they were still being progressive in it, right? The definition of pop has completely deteriorated officially for all music that creeps into that realm since their passing, right? But, yeah, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, Hanif, yeah, you're right. You know, there's a lot of, you know, foul play. I don't want to speculate on all that now, you know what I'm saying? But without studying stuff, you know. But Prince has an autobiography that they finished. It was finished for him because it was being asked to hold to somebody, called The Beautiful Ones, and named after one of the songs I think on Purple Rain, if I'm correct. Yeah. And it's a short book. Didn't really get a lot. I'm in the middle. I just started it. You know, I haven't gone back to it. But and I don't think Michael Jackson wrote a tell-all book, you know, anything like that. But the thing is, though, is that, you know, just listening to music and studying the music, though, I wouldn't say that they suffered a lack of humility or improper humility if we judge them by their music. You know what I mean? Definitely not. You know what I mean? All right. Talking about the 5percentmedia.com, this is something where everybody could participate, though. You know what I mean? I'll save that question about Nas for later, though, because it's a whole thing, you know. Real quick, though, I don't know how many I would judge off the top. Maybe 3 or 4, maybe. If I talk about as a collector, if you're a collector, the more deep you are as a collector, the more that you would have to get, right? Because Nas is a central artist, but Nas to me is not really important how many classes he has over the career, because every single album has at least 6 or 7 songs that are next level. You know what I mean? And when you add up in a long career, though, that's a lot of songs. Mm-hmm. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Born. You know, but when we think about humility, it is a judgment of self. You know what I mean? It is a judgment of self. So it's commonly seen as the lowering of a person, right? So obviously that we are redefining it, though, in many respects, though, right? We are redefining it in certain respects, right? Because we're using the definition. You know what I mean? Since humility refuses to be humility, the word refuses to be humble, we'll continue with humility, right? Right. So, a modest or low view of one's own importance, right? Now, that's the definition. So it's really on this level, right? And that's why I said when I had already put in there that I redefine humility as a function. Remember, I said that. I said humility as a function, as a living function, right, is like a gauge, right? The English language doesn't really have like a distinct word for someone that is doing the opposite of that, where it links with humility. So a person properly gauging themselves with excellence. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have that word. So it's missing from the language. Okay? Right? So if humility only defines someone as lowering themselves to be modest, there is no real word, though, for properly gauging yourself supremely in a field of excellence in a nice way. So we would still have to use the word humble. Okay? Right? So that's the problem with that word. So I already introduced a redefinition of it. So I'm definitely saying that I'm redefining. You know what I mean? But the point is, I'm trying to make it useful. You know, how are you properly humble? You know what I mean? Right. So that's what I'm saying. The person of humility isn't just modest, improperly modest. You know what I mean? Because then that would be a way to be civil, but not necessarily righteous. You know what I'm saying? Because it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be correct. It is, right? What I said, Born, was a student is one who's always willing to be wrong about anything at any time, right? When Saladin, when you say the term poor righteous teacher is synonymous with humility, humbleness, it is, though, but what happens when you're in a room, right, and you realize you're the one that needs to be teaching these people? You're the one that needs to open their mouth and tell them what the truth is. You see? This is where the opposite word of humility is very hard to find, okay? And that's why I try to keep it in your head to have the use humility as more of a gauge meter. How can we engage people and still be modest, though? How can we engage people and still be modest and approach them in a humane way, right? Okay. Yeah. I'm not really getting the back and forth with Supreme and Darkin, though, because I guess when all this was happening, I'm kind of like defining what I'm saying here. Yeah, Supreme. What I say to you, though, Supreme, is like, what would be the word choice? You know, there probably is a word, but remember, we're allowed to redefine words. I mean, we've redefined so many fucking words. You know what I mean? You can't really read anything that I've ever written, though, and not realize that I have been fucking with language the whole time. You know what I mean? And redefining things. You know what I'm saying? So, right? Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Kim. I definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah, Ja, that's pretty much what I've been saying, right? Right? Pretty much, you know? Because when someone is really incorrectly and too modest about themselves and has improperly gauged themselves, then they have pitfalls, you know what I mean? And if they are not humble, then they've also improperly gauged themselves. So then they are not, their efficacy is shot. You know what I mean? It goes to shit, right? So it's completely lost, right? But let me give a minute though, since people love this word humble, and I'll be humble enough to humble myself. Right, because I do want to go on into the other questions and topics that people ask, but I also don't want to leave a subject alone that we're still on about this word humility. Okay. The chat just got quiet, so I'm going to continue. All right. So the humbly moving forward, right? Just keep using the word, see how it adapts. But okay, about the 5% media page, right? Well, one thing about the first thing about the 5% media page, right, is that it's not just us contributing to it. Anybody can contribute to it if you want to write something. You know, you just let me know. Or you could go on the social media. You could email. Go on 5percentmedia.com, and you know the basic emails are there and the pages, so you can contact us through the social media or through the contact us thing, you know, there. But once you do that, if you want to contribute or you just have a question about anything, there's a lot of stuff here. You know what I mean? I didn't even know there was so much stuff that everybody had written. A lot of the pieces that I'll try to share. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I was being humble, but yeah. So the 5% media page, I think like the first thing that it ignites, you know, more than anything is really the question of how we define the title, right? 5% media, the 5% nation of God's and Earth's premier media hub, right? And obviously I'm not talking about the premier media hub because it pretty much is it online, you know what I mean? If you look at the writers we have and where we're getting, you know, who's linked up with it, this is pretty much everybody, right? But the thing to take notice, and I saw a question was about, you know, the 5%er versus NGE titles and stuff like that. And I'll briefly talk about it for a minute, though. You know what I mean? Because I don't really. I think it's a waste of time. All this argument about what's the real 5%, 5% name, NGE name, all that other shit. You know what I mean? What we forget is that we're not really using, a lot of times, and I say we, everybody getting where they fit in, we're not really using an understanding when we think about how we name ourselves as a collective unit, you know, and that's why we get like, do we go with what we were originally called, or do we go with the understanding that allows us to be understood by everybody that we come in a name with? You know what I mean? So when we go out there, and I guarantee this though, people just fronting. But if you go out there and just say things like, let's say for example, you say, you know, I'm from Allah's 5%, right? Or I'm from the 5% nation. No matter what, that needs more. Every single name that we would give as a nation would need some kind of description. No one is going to be like, oh yeah, okay, You know what I mean? But it's the type of conversation that you would get after. You know what I mean? The type of direction that the conversation would take. So, in my experience, if it's just a lost 5%, though, you already have to go into the Muslim things. You have to go into the Islamic things. You have to go into those counters, so that your build, your build as a teacher is already going into a countermeasure, right? That's what most don't want to admit. The other thing is this, right? And last week I talked about a name for the individual, okay? Right? And I said this, right? Let me read to you. This was the assignment, though. This is not an assignment to give in unless you really has your name. And I would love if you have a righteous name, that you make write this as a piece and really perfect your writing skill. Because if there's anything that you should be able to write first and really practice writing, is what your name means and what it means to you. So, answering the two questions that I posed as the assignment is, what am I? I am, right? And fill it in. And what will I be? I will be. Because these are the two things that a name should mean to you. Somebody's name could be knowledge, and that doesn't really draw much out of me. But for that person that's named knowledge, that should draw out those two answers to that question. You know what I mean? Because that's what our names were intended to be. When we look at the name of an entire group, it should be able to tell us what we are, but also directly imply, what I'm saying, what we will intend to be. You know what I'm saying? And I think in many respects, for the clarity of the nation, I don't see any problem with us saying 5% nation of God's nuts. You know what I mean? Because to me, we're not just defined by what the nature by which we teach, right? Which, if we were teaching correctly, is not a permanent name. Okay, with the 5%ers forever, we ain't gonna be the 5%ers forever. You know what I mean? And also, too, this is just me. To me, there's a lot of ego in just saying, "Hey, I'm a 5%." No matter what, the name implies a lot of ego, because it means that you're saying that my reality is that I know shit that you don't. I know things that you don't. I am a 5%. I know this, and then you're in 85. You don't know that. You know what I mean? So it's not really a name that is as, I'm not gonna say befitting, but it's not normally befitting. Right? Normally, that way nobody gets offended, right? But it's not normally befitting, the name of a people, right? That is going to literally deal with everyone. You know what I mean? So you're already claiming what you are, and you're already defining what will be. You know what I mean? So it's pompous, to put it simple. You know what I mean? And if we don't get that, then you're not going to really get the interactions that you're going to have with people when you build with them. You know what I mean? People go, I got this knowledge, and they don't want to get it. They think I'm this, they think I'm that. We are going out there and we're telling them that we got the knowledge and we're the supreme being, and that they're not. These are all facts. But if you go out there like that, then also know that you're also going to be labeled, though, in that pompous nature. That's just a fact. There's no way around that. You know what I mean? Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's the whole point about the show and prove it. So you can name yourself what you are doing, or you can name yourself what you actually are. What's missing is the name of what we are, And I always thought that compromise was what was in there with, saying 5% nation of God's nuts. And with that, it includes all humanity. You know what I mean? Because God and earth include all humanity in their endeavors. So it's always open. We've never been on. That doesn't imply in inclusiveness. You know what I mean? It never did, though. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny that people argue against the use of the nation of God's and earth's name because it implies exclusivity. But then they want to use the name Allah's 5%, which is actually even more exclusive title. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's just as exclusive. You know what I mean? Only the 5%. This is the nation of only the 5%. You know what I mean? So both are just as, inclusive, right? And if you say nation of God's and earth doesn't include all 5%ers, then you're being silly. I'm saying? Even so. Everything is under God. You know what I mean? Everything. So even 5%ers that aren't the true and living God, they're under that. You know what I mean? Everything is under God. Right? So, you know, like I said, I keep it simple. You know, I don't go with the Medina Hadith and following, like, you know, only what the Father said, what he called it, what he said it was going to be, because the Father also gave understanding and expected us to name ourselves and to present ourselves in a way that the people will understand. You know what I mean? And none of that, no one denies, though, like, yo, is this a nation? Is it a nation of gods and earths everywhere here? That are they the ones that control the universe and humanity and blah, 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 right? Yeah, the answer is never going to be no. So the name is not incorrect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We are, yeah. But Darkim, today's theme is humility. So, you know, I'm trying to chill a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit. But, again, you know, people get into these big arguments about stuff, and really the defining moment becomes you're going against what Allah said, you're part of this, and you're part of that. The NGDs, this breakout group. And the truth is, for those thinking real historical, the truth is that it's really just a Medina and Mecca beef, because Mecca was able to write things down and Medina did not, so now Medina has to do extra talking. What is the lesson in all this, though? Sometimes showing and proving is in all fields and forms. And if you don't take advantage of all fields and forms, then technically you have not shown and proven everything completely. That's just a fact. So everybody that's crying, they better get their pens out, their pads out, and start writing stuff down. Right? But yeah. And one of the fallouts though is the negativity about anything that's written. So all plus lessons are evil, all things are this, you know, like with that said, we're not going to read any books or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Let alone other gods, things that other gods write, and everything like that. Right? And that's sloppy, very sloppy. But again, there's a wealth of articles here, and one of the things that's really important though is that people really treat this like it's their own. You know what I'm saying? So if something's written here, you know, something's written here that you don't really agree with or you don't understand stuff, you know, disagree with it. You know, email us through the links here. There, you know, the contact us buttons are right there. It's always at the top, you know, right of the page next to the search engine. You know, email us, question us if you want to see things written, if you would like to write things, you know, treat it like it's yours. You know what I mean? You know, donate pictures, whatever you can. You know what I mean? Whatever you can. Right? If you look through the sections, though, things are still being added onto it. Those things are still being extended. So there's a lot of things to put in it. I really like the way it looks, though. I gotta say. You know? And I've only got one piece up there. You know. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we put ourselves in a different category though. So, you know, why stop? Why stop there? Say nation of gods and earth. Why stop there? Say we're all a nation of gods and earth. You know? And anything that's not God and earth, no, is under that realm. You know what I'm saying? Everyone who's a 5%er, everyone who's, you know, dogs, cats, bears, lions, tigers, everything is under that. You know what I'm saying? Right? Planets, stars, right? But where was I? Yeah, I had written a long build about I only have one, but it's a 3,000 plus word piece about Rakim's book. Don't sweat the technique, though. There's a lot of things to learn about that as far as the way he got taught, the way he learned, and analyzing those aspects, though. You know? And it's just it's a great book, so it's worth the read. You know? And, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, Rakim. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, you know, we'll all be talking like RZA, right? If we do that. Mm-hmm. We'll be just American. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know what I mean? And it's funny, I didn't do that. I didn't think I was going to talk about RZA, though, but I am wearing, you know, my own patched up polo, as I usually have. The lone low life with the home sewn garment. This here is a flag of Puerto Rico, but it's one of the recent flags, and it's to express the independence of Puerto Rico. So this is recent. This is very new flag. I was rocking it before most people were rocking it, and that was in 2012. So it's a thing that took on really like around 2016 and stuff. But it goes to show you though that the fantasy land that he depicted is not so. When you call yourself God, the spotlight is on you. Immediately, you gotta be able to stand there and show them. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And also, the name of a nation should dispel confusion and stuff. And I think that this is me personally. This is my personal thought on it. When we go out there and say, I'm a part of a lost 5% and stuff like that, you know what I mean? I truly don't think that the Father wanted us to be advocating ourselves as just his group of people. You know what I'm saying? That he wanted us to be defined only by him because it venerates him. I think that a lot of the veneration that we all do, and that includes myself as well, a lot of that is because he's just, he's an incredible man. I was true and living. But a lot of the veneration, a lot of the extra that everybody nation does, I'm sure that a lot of people wouldn't really like. You know what I'm saying? If they were here today, and especially the Father. You know what I mean? Because it gets out of hand. It gets out of hand. It's a little bit too much. And where it becomes a battle of hadith and stuff, and it's really not useful. We have to. We're only the 5% nation, though. Then what you're doing is you're confusing us with Muslims again, and that was the whole point of not being confused with Muslims. You know what I mean? So, this is important. If we continue to do that, then it's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? So, always trying to find a way to express who we are in a proper way. You know what I mean? Is what he would have wanted them. Problem is that people fear. They fear that when you innovate a name or you say this is a collective name, though, that it'll continue to snowball into worse and worse things. You know what I'm saying? And that's where a lot of times the conflict is really about fear. Fear that what is preserved will be daringly destroyed through a false innovation. But let's get to some other questions, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But in the reality of things, Dark Kim, right? That hasn't been the case, though. You know what I'm saying? It really hasn't been the case. The veneration is on OD levels. You know what I'm saying? And at least the people protecting a quote that he said, even at the expense of understanding that he taught us, to actually apply and use and draw insight from things. So that's a big problem. But continuing on. 5% media. Again, check out the 5% media page, though. There's a lot of stuff to read now with the quarantine. I think most likely I got to thematically decided. I have some things I'm writing, and I'm thinking about writing maybe a regular column about the peace course. That's why I put this link in there, and also some commentary about anything that I thought may have been left out or anything that relates to this, that could be useful. I haven't decided how, but also too, in the homework assignments that we've had, the one that doesn't go away, I'm just going to name it now. We're halfway through the course session tonight. Again, the plus lessons that I've been continuing to share. My Build Awareness Square, these 5 things that you study of yourself immediately when getting knowledge of self. If you don't have it, email me, right? Sunez97. And I like that some people were getting on me. No, get on me, right? Get on me for that. And then the concentration of those things that you're building on is the framework of how you're building and focusing on what I call the T.O.P, the triangle of power, the reading, writing, and the training. You know, what are you reading? What are you studying? What are you writing? How are you expressing yourself? What are you creating? What are you working to share? And then how are you building? How are you training your physical body? The triangle of power. You know what I mean? Of course, named after, not of course, but, you know, the way I see it, I named after that focus of the triangle of power that is the name for the Wing Chun punch, you know, when it comes in that triangle, you know, this is the bottom foundation, these arms are the other two sides of the triangle. You know what I mean? This is where all your force goes, you know, so I just thought of that, you know, so I say triangle of power because you should always be, if you're quarantined and you have extra hours at home, those three things should be keeping you busy. You know, you should be making goals that are extreme so that way you actually don't achieve your goals at the end of the day and have to keep going back to the drawing board, working harder, adding new things, you know what I mean? And if it's not, then you're wasting your time. You know? Even a thing like a quarantine isn't being taken to good use. Absolutely. I remember that cure. And that is obviously in the right, you know what I'm saying? Because if I said read, write, train, writing was also drawing, right? Yeah, I actually haven't seen the fourth. I have the first three, and I've seen Master Ip. But yeah, great movies about him too. You know, Imam was incredible. Nothing short of it. Okay, next thing. All right, so. All right. Now, I just want to answer this question. How do you teach your daughters, or do you teach them 120? Okay, so. I have two daughters. One of them is too young to go through 120, like in, you know, totally 120. She's only 6. And I hate the idea of going through 120 and then having her parrot shit, because that would annoy the hell out of me. I don't want like a 6-year-old to be parroting shit, you know. Nice, very nice. Self, that's very nice. But yeah, if 793, you have all those movies and they're over 7 gigs. Yeah, no way we could get that in an email. You'd have to put that in, you know, in a send space or something like that. You know, like you'd have to download that in file. Some way to transport it and stuff, you know, or do them one at a time, you know. But anyway, the thing is, when I teach my children, I have one daughter in college and I have one that is 6 years old. So I guess I use the model of the oldest because she went through all those ages, right? I didn't get to raise my oldest daughter with me every single day, right? So I always had to focus on the limited amount of time that I had with her and teaching her the most quality things. So a memorization rote way of teaching 120 would have been very useless. And then it would have been very more difficult for her in the time because he had nobody to go through it with. You know what I mean? So I think that in general, the way I've taught her is try to teach her every single principle of who the original man is, first showing her the reality of religion, and really in that format that I taught last week about the knowledge build degree. You know what I mean? Once she's old enough, I'm telling her who she is. I'm telling her who the true living God is. But then I'm slowly showing her the realization of it by exposing civilization, what it truly is. That again, civilization does not equate with righteousness, right? It just has been formatted where it can be productive and continual, okay? So for all civilization to continue, there has to be a slight modicum, a slight amount of righteousness to allow it to continue. You know what I'm saying? It just can't be, the purge every day, right? Which America originally was the purge, especially during the the Christmas season, right? It certainly was the purge, as they really were celebrating mutated versions of what they got from us, which is their Saturnalia, and it was even outlawed and to no avail. They had to just develop it into a children's holiday, into a buying holiday, and that's how Christmas became. But the point being is that when you're teaching them, when I was teaching my daughter, though, I always focused on the principles of things, the principles of her power, the principles of her reality, so that she doesn't deal with any type of mystery God. You know what I mean? And when things aligned themselves with 120, I would show her and quote the degree and go through the degree with her. And these degrees aren't going to be remembered by her as far as quoting them, but she's going to know that this understanding is from them. And then the history of the degrees, the history that's in the degrees, right? The historical precedents of the making of the white man, the history of it and all that. All of these things are being taught to her in other ways historically, and especially in line with this history that she's learning in school, or learned in school, and she's now a college student. You know what I mean? So that's really how I did it. You know what I mean? Okay, let's see here. I'm missing some. I must have missed something that Joseph said. Said, what is the... Oh, Joseph, you had said, what is the meaning of civilization? So I guess somebody thought they had to answer it, right? So I took that rhetorically and ran up. Hanif, you said, I got 2 kids in college, one studying for the LSAT, and the 6-year-old. They grew up in a household. That's real peace. That's real peace. Congratulations on all the building that they're doing. That's really dope. You know? That's really dope. You know? But if we teach them first, though, to really excel in this society, we've done something that the father was always priding himself that we do, and it should be logical. It shouldn't be something that he said to do. Right? But, right? Yeah. So, it's just the way I teach. So I've never been one to just make people quote stuff. Although she had, at best, though, I want them to be able to know how to build on things mathematically, to understand the mathematics, though, and then not to. Everything in 120 is going to be familiar history. They're going to know about it. You know what I'm saying? And if they take that one day where they have that time and want to learn deeper about certain things, well, that's when I tell them, like, it's time for you to learn 120, because that type of information that you're looking for is on a deeper level, and now it's all going to come together, though, knowledge of 120. You know what I mean? And one thing that I do, though, is that, like I do with all the students, I let the students develop themselves, so I don't impose. So even though they are my daughters, though, I don't impose what I want them to learn. I really share with them and make them and give to them what I think that they really could use, so it's not about indoctrinating, the way I've always seen this is that it's true, so it's going to be right anyway, and if I teach them correctly, they're going to see it anyway. It's all correct. So while that's happening, though, I continually research to see that it continues to be correct, right? Never taking the last truth on face value the next day, That's really like the key here, right? Okay. Right. Unless somebody has something more worthwhile to say about humility, I would say let's let it go, only because it's becoming more questioning semantics, though. And now I feel like we should just get diluted wine with water, and because it's getting very Greek here. I was debating words, it's not really becoming that useful. You know what I mean? And it's that always could be a real problem though. With being a 5%, you know what I mean? Right? How are we most useful? You know, like really, what's the function right now? Right? The function right now, what has to be functional right now, is the new world that we're all going into, and the new world that a lot of us are about to go into, and how we will be really, you know, build like that. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah, you know, you can use the principles of knowledge, wisdom, and sanity to explain what most people mean when they use the term humility. All right, I guess as a capper theory, then show and prove that one. You know what I mean? And use it because I think I've been building here for over an hour and a half, and I thought I did that. Wow, you know what I mean? Wow. Well, I thought I had done that in some kind of efficacious way, but okay, let's see here. Okay, let's see, because I want to. Okay, let's see. Okay. Let me give out some stuff. That way, yeah, I'm going to build Dark Kim for the rewind, because a lot of people tune in, though. There are more people I see that are tuned in that are on the live chat debating this issue, though. I'll look back and forth later. But, because, Dark Kim hold that side rally here. Yeah, because I really feel like it's going into semantics, though. It's not really, you know. I love wordplay, though, but I'd rather hear it with beats. You know what I mean? For those of you are like, the Peace course is a little different. I always wanted to have different themes and different ideas, right? And now that one thing about a quarantine is that we can kind of end up living and truthfully, start to live in a certain way that, or be in a situation that is very much like what most of my life is. So, okay, and most of my life, though, I spend it researching and studying and self-developing, because as a writer, that's what you got to do. You got to do a lot of research in life, but you also do a lot of work in writing at the lab. So it's a balance, though, and there are long periods of time where I'm not going anywhere. And there are long periods of time, though, where I try to balance it. You know, I've never been one of those people that don't write or research. It's probably the most fun thing to do out of being a writer. You know, so, but some people take whole long periods of not doing anything as far as research, but just living life. And Balthazar Gracian said that in one of, let me see the name of the book. I don't think I'll be able to call up the book now, but in my collection. But what's the book that I'm trying to find the name of the book? Yeah, The Art of Worldly Wisdom. You know what I mean? In The Art of Worldly Wisdom, you know, Balthazar Gracian, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to think of it. He talked about that you have to spend a lot of time learning, a massive amount of time living, and then a massive amount of large portion of your life then making something, you know. And I think that a lot of times when people read that, they think that that happens all in stages: young, youthful, and then old. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. It kind of works all mixed up. So sometimes you are researching, and a lot of times you are going out there and living certain things. And then a lot of times you are actually creating something based off of that living and that study. So it's kind of a combination. It doesn't work linear, even though he proposed it linear, right? I mean, look at these. Yeah, I should give all you guys in the hallway some demerits and shit. But, Dark Kim, I have missed the halls and the rooms of Allah School in Mecca, so I'm glad that this is going on. So hopefully people can rewind, enjoy the chat even later, but also get the builds that I'm going to give here. I wanted to share a plus lesson called the Justice Curriculum. some of these things, because they sound very basic, but I want the basic to be understood, because for a lot of the students that never been to the Peace course, never been, a lot of these basic things are things that I've used as a foundation for us to catapult, because what seems basic is something that is only basic one to the person that doesn't use it. If you use it, it'll multiply exponentially. Okay, so the justice curriculum is kind of a reminder, because a lot of times when we're in this quarantine is a great reminder of this. We kind of could get stuck in either not simplifying things. That's why I said the triangle of power: read, write, train, but then not really seeing the diversity of what that can entail. Okay, and so then we think we're done, or we have exposed everything. And I think that one aspect in this quarantine is to really start tapping into the idea that there really isn't a limit to how much you can absorb and how much you can develop. Okay, you know, and a lot of times the boredom and the fatigue is justified, is embraced, because of that notion that, you know, I've absorbed all that I could and I've gone too far in this one thing. But if there's a diversity in your studies, if there's a diversity in the way that you attack that triangle, when you're reading, what you're reading, how you're writing, what you're creating, right? And again, I use writing because I'm a writer. This is what I mainly create, right? And then how you're training. But you see, like, I train in martial arts, but the martial arts is creative, so it entails a lot of the other aspect. And it also entails the other, because I actually have to study myself. So it's a lot of self-study too. I'm studying how I'm actually moving. So all of that is important, right? But so I devised something simple called the justice curriculum, and it's just really a bunch of subjects that makes a well-rounded individual. So I'm going to read it here, and I'll email it to you if anybody wants it emailed to them. But because we're here, I just want to go through these lessons. The study of many disciplines does not make man righteous, yet it greatly propels the ease by which they may realize themselves as such, build greater. Just as the most oppressive societies have fortified themselves with the study of many disciplines, our study of a versatile curriculum will develop a framework of ideas, potential, and self-awareness. The following 10 subject areas are a beginning in this broad range of study that are necessities of culture. Okay? And look, this is written, I would say I wrote this, I didn't date it. I wrote this probably in 2000. This is probably 2008, 2009. It might be 10 years ago. But the first one, surprisingly enough, is hygiene. In a supposedly civilized, advanced societies, hygiene is often at its lowest. A possible reason for that, aside from the awkward change it is for the Caucasian westernized world, is that we do not view it as a constant study. We may adapt certain measures as they come to us, or flow with social mores if, say, someone properly uses his tissue to open the bathroom door that reeks with diverse fecal matter particles. However, we must constantly protect ourselves from the environment through a developing awareness and knowledge of hygienic practices and study to fortify the home with less chemical pollutants and cleaner rituals. Okay, this is something I wrote 10 years ago. Okay, and it's the irony is ridiculous now that we're in a pandemic, though. Right? So we don't think hygiene is one of the first things you need to study. It's an actual thing. Like, literally, I'm thinking, like, change the way you're studying these things. Don't just YouTube stuff. Don't just go to news. Think about reading some books on these things. Think about reading books on even the history of hygiene. Know how this all develops. You know, what brings the most things? The theme of the 1 to 36 is fear. The journey of how we got here, and I'm saying we as far as really all original people got here through some kind of slavery or oppression. So we're taking the African American experience that really is detailed in the 1 to 36 and expanding it and applying it to all of the original peoples, because in some level they relate to an aspect of it, right? And really, you could find everyone, even China, Latino, everyone has come here in some slavery or some kind of way of oppression, or has been oppressed once they have come here. So they've been, the bamboozle even takes place. Because remember, the fool, right? Can a devil fool a Muslim? One, even if you arrive here, you were being fooled as far as the lifestyle that is here. So that implies to really all the original people in some respect, right? When we look at things like that, all of these things have to be taken into account. You know what I'm saying? So when we look at hygiene, though, we also have to look at those things. You know what I mean? What are the ways that we'll study these different subjects? You know, how we go through the different angles of that subject, right? So because of that 1 to 36, when we look at the 1 to 36, the main theme is fear, right? I lost my train of thought there for a minute. The main aspect of the 1 to 36 is fear. And by the way, as a side note, 50 Cent's book, I'm not a fan of 50 Cent really at all, you know what I mean? But one of his most useful things has been the 50th Law, the book that he wrote, the 50th Law. I think it was Bourne Bourne was the first one to get me a copy of that book. I think you did give me a copy. Yeah. You graced me with your copy, which was really nice cover. Really bound real nicely. And the reason I mentioned that book, The 50th Law, with 50 Cent and Robert Greene, is that the 50th Law is really about overcoming fear. And fear is the theme of the 1 to 36. And one of the greatest ways to immediately destroy fear, right? And the way it incapacitates you and destroys you is to start going about getting knowledge. And the more knowledge we have about hygiene, the more we have about cleansing ourselves, the more we have about defeating germs, the more that we're going to be prepared to go out into this world that the way it's looking is logically looking that we're going to have to go out there while these germs are still out there, while this virus is still out there. We'll have to be able to protect ourselves well and fortify ourselves before we get back into our homes, right? So hygiene is good. And for the next class, though, I'm just going through them now, but for the next class, I'm going to have some, I think I'm, for myself, because I would like to have more, I'm going to go through each subject and have some literature that goes with it. You know, some of them I already know, but some of them I like to get more, you know what I mean? And some of them that I have in my head, like with hygiene, this is unavailable, you know, like Dirt, The History and Abuses of Dirt by Terrence McLaughlin is really out of print book, you know, so that's a great book to start in the history of that. And some of that I was referring to as far as being new to the Caucasian world, westernized world. They've only been consistent. 48 Laws of Power obviously is where you start. Even though 48 Laws of Power, though, even has some things that are totally wrong. But that makes it more useful because using, like, say, the Taoist principles of emptiness, like he is in the last law, using it incorrectly, like it's literally not what it means, what he's using it as. That's not what they meant. It shows you how information and insights of the ancient world are manipulated, you know, because, for example, one of the most used business books is The Art of War. And a lot of the principles of The Art of War have nothing to do with the ruthlessness that it gets applied to in the business world, you know? But again, once we start eliminating fear by gathering knowledge, then we'll be more equipped to deal with any and everything. Okay, so it's always that battle. The second thing, and no one will be surprised that I put this here, is music. Okay, so this is what I originally wrote. While we may enjoy the latest pop craze and shuffle 500 ditties in our iPod, I'm reading this to date myself, so this is, again, I wrote this in the mid to late 2000s. Music is a language of resistance and expression that our people, oppressed the last 6,000 plus years, have developed wonderfully. To love music is to learn of it, to expand the palette of sounds we hear also broadens the ability to hear and develop new ideas. I'm going to expound on that. In the societies we live in, with so many original people from all over the world, we ought to know these other languages they have expressed themselves with, beyond the radio's narrow dialect. In New York City, we have at least, I'm going to name some. We have Dominican merengue, bachata, Puerto Rican salsa, which actually salsa was developed here in New York City. Right? Because we're doing a show. We're doing this, I said show, I'm thinking, got me on music, I'm on my show. But we're doing this class, obviously, from Mecca, from New York City, right? Puerto Rican salsa, bomba plena, Cuban son, Jamaican roots reggae, the so-called African American soul music, jazz, the foundation, right? Blues. And for all these original people, the most lyrically expressive musical genre to date, hip-hop music. So everyone should be using music. And I named some I remember: Rakim, Johnny Hathaway, Miles Davis, Johnny Ventura, Willie Colon, Bob Marley. They should all be heard by everyone. Okay? Do not listen. Don't just ignore a music because you don't know the language and stuff like that. That's really not a useful thing, you know what I mean? That would make you not listen to Fela Kuti, and then you wouldn't, know such a, powerful musician. So, and not know anything about Afrobeat and everything. So what you want to do is really, when we talk about the justice curriculum, the best expressed by music here, is we're talking about the concept of a palette, okay? And everything that you take in develops and broadens your palette. So you want to broaden your palette, okay? And when we listen to different kinds of music, though, you're actually developing your palette, just like you're eating different types of quality foods, okay? Someone becomes a vegan, if they do it correctly, it seems like they're getting rid of a lot of food, but what they're really doing is opening their palate to try a lot of different new foods, tons of different rices, tons of different grains, tons of different vegetables that they never tried because it never was important to them. So once we do all that, peace God. As a side note, there's a lot of James Allen books out there that are free. I haven't read all of them. I'm not sure if I have that one. I've collected them, but I haven't read all yet. But yeah, James Allen has a lot of books, and they're all most of them, I'm not gonna say all, just in case I'm wrong, but they're all in the free domain. So you could do searches and stuff on these sites and get them, like Gutenberg and other sites that have free books. Opening up the palette. I said here's something. I said expand the sounds. We also broaden the ability to hear and develop new ideas. You gotta understand though that the more that you listen and hear different things will sound, different ways of people express themselves, you'll be more open to. Different sound frequencies, all these things will change the way that you are open to different things, and it just broadens, it allows you to be a better creator. You're not here to say that you're the true and living God just so you can have a domain that you dictate over. That's not what that means. What it means is that you get a knowledge of self, and now you can create not only a new world, right, of betterment, but what does that mean, new world? A new world doesn't mean that you're making a place. What it means, though, is that you're making and creating yourself, and you are creating things that go out into the world, that spread out into the world, that change people's view. They broaden them with beauty. They give them insight into greatness. They challenge their way of thinking. They teach them new things. So your reality is one as being a creator, not just someone that knows that he has domain over everything, okay? That knowledge degree doesn't say that you're the maker and owner, king of the universe, you know what I mean? That you just have domain of everything that you make and own. It means that it's something that is ever made, it's ever created. And so you have to start studying creative works and learn to be a creator. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that I want you to like every genre, but trust me, every genre, every legend, there's a legend, multiple legends in every single genre of music that, and I'm lowballing it because I think it's mostly everyone that, especially in the career of hip hop I've had as a journalist and historian, they've all been extremely diverse and knowledgeable about massive amount of genres. And I'm not talking about just people willing to sample things, right? Now, the third thing is very obvious: news. From the politics of your immediate residential area to the world stage, we must seek out legitimate news sources and study them. We must know more than the paltry 15-minute broadcast at 11 p.m. of tabloid specials. This is one of the ways to understand the people we love and seek to build. So, you should have alternate news sites. You know what I mean? Like, for example, Black Agenda Report website or 5% Media, right? For example, Democracy Now, along with analyzing what's on MSNBC and the general news that's coming in, and the CNBCs, and even take a break and do the knowledge as a cross reference to Fox News to see how they cover stuff. Get all the questions, or have fun with it, right? And see how people are being lied to. All of this though is important, so you get a perspective of how people are learning, and how people are developing to be learned. Like what makes a cultured person in society is also by studying how they get their news and how they absorb that. Another one that seems obvious but has to be listed because you should have your checklist. That's what this really is. It's number 4, science. The sciences of biochemistry, quantum mechanics, and mathematics, for example, are key to a knowledge of self. Working to study sciences slowly and usefully will always give you more sense to the universe we have created. This is the study of our inner workings. Now, how can we not study this daily? So, I always like to have at least something I study dealing with science every single day. You know what I mean? And certain books are more difficult for me than others. And so, as far as let's say, for example, reading material, if there are books that are difficult that I feel need to be read, I just break them up. You know what I'm saying? So I find out how many pages it's going to be, where I start to lose my concentration. So, and I divide that, and every day, if I break it up intensely, if it's really I lose my concentration, it'll be like 5 pages every day. Certain books will be very long, so I'll go 10 pages every week. So at least I have a checklist of this book is being read 10 pages every week. So by the end of the year, it's checked off, And I'll do that with a lot of books. I'll divide it, you know what I'm saying? Other books, though, they need to be absorbed slowly. Like they're kind of like manuals. Like, for example, if you're reading The Roots of Chinese Qigong by Dr. Yang Ming, that's not a book to read through really quickly. That's a book that, whatever level you're on, when you're reading Dr. Yang Ming's books, you want to take them slowly, you know what I mean? And read them part by part and see the application of certain things. So, and test out things and try them. So it's a good book to break up in parts and read it like a certain amount of pages every week. Maybe you do a chapter every week, Usually with most things I use page numbers, but it could be chapters too. If there are books, if you're reading, so with the sciences, that's what usually people have trouble with. Find the science books, and I try to give you science books that are more interesting to read, like the better teachers that are more appealing, the more appealing teachers, I say, like Michio Kaku or Neil deGrasse Tyson. Their books will get you into the subjects, and then you can go into them. So you start out with those that you read daily. But if there are books that are essential, you're going to have to learn to break them up and just, put that work in. Check into T.O.P. He's hard to read. You know what I mean? So take that civilization of barbarism and break it up. Read 10 pages, go 20 pages a week. That's all I could do, 20 pages a week. That shouldn't be your only reading all week, but you should be reading other things, you know what I'm saying? But that particular book, you'll break it up, But again, with me personally, with my reading levels, my reading goals, I have reading goals. I have at least a 50-page goal I have to reach every day, which I don't always make. I don't always make it. And 52 books a year, which equates to like a book a week. You know what I mean? Which is I'm always behind until the end of the year starts approaching, and all of those books that I broke up start getting read. A lot of the shorter books that just happen to be, and also shorter books that I repeat every year, like As a Man Thinketh. You know what I mean? The Dhammapada, other books, the Tao Te Ching, and other books that I repeat every year, right? And there are books that I repeat like triannually, every 3 years or so, or 2 years. All right. So number 5 in this list, health. Again, this equates with number 1, but you see how I separated them because notice I separated hygiene and health. I'm not being very humble about the relevance we're having here. But the diet is something that constantly form from the inner to the outer. If the proposed healthier lifestyle is adopted, a vegan living foods diet, this is what I've always taught as the high point, is embraced, then one can no longer eat ignorantly. One must be a student of ingredients, preparation, and recipes. We must learn what things we may be putting in our body, how to prepare them so that we may have supreme control, and learn to express ourselves through our food with recipes that make food taste great to us. What do I mean by we can no longer eat ignorantly? Once someone becomes vegan, they don't have the opportunity of getting a bulk amount of protein and protective nutrients through meat and dairy. You know what I mean? So those kind of foods kind of hold the disease and lock it in you until you just fall apart. Whereas when you become a vegan and you get rid of these things, you're going to wither away because there's so many things that you have to now individually add on, and you don't know now you have to know the pieces that you're missing. Now you have to know what foods really do have protein, what foods really are the carbohydrates, the complex and the simple. What foods really have the high nutrient levels, right? So that's what I mean by the education that comes with health and adopting that lifestyle. You know what I mean? Yeah, and again, I appreciate that 793. Yeah, definitely. I love that you're taking notes. You could keep taking notes. I'm gonna have all these notes in the thing, and this plus lesson. If you email me, I'll give it to you. Everything I'm saying here, I'll give it to you. Number 6 is training. Again, a lot of the things that if we're in this quarantine, there's no way that you can be training though. Like, not everyone can do every type of thing in the space that they have. You know what I mean? But we could easily find a space to maybe use a jump rope. Ceilings and things like that can always constrict. But you could do jump squats and all these other kind of things. You can do. Everyone should be able to do push-ups. You know what I mean? So right now, because of the way this quarantine goes, I don't have all of my heavy weights. So I only have light weights, 30 pounders, 25 pounders, 10 pounders, so, and some resistance bands. So I've added a lot of push-ups. So through the course of a day, even after my training session, I continue to finish this goal of 500 push-ups every single day. So the 6 days I train have to also have, with that large training session, a completion of 500 push-ups. So, and I do them in parts, 50 push-up sets. But the thing about it is you want to be able to compensate. So I said here, the training that one chooses must be studied. Brothers must study how to increase their muscle mass without loads of whey and sugar to merely mold fat. If we engage in a sport, we must learn more of the sport and what its benefits are. We must also learn to strengthen our bodies and avoid injury, right? And let me tell you something, right? With this whole quarantine, though, we don't have the opportunity to just go to the doctor or go to the hospital if we get hurt and stuff. So now we really have to learn how to keep healthy, keep strong, keep at tip-top shape without getting hurt, staying healthy. You know what I'm saying? So all of these things are useful, and there are a lot of things you can do also for your own health. You know what I mean? Number 7. Again, this comes with the studies of the knowledge of self. Identity. The study of identity is the key to a successful knowledge of self, so that a title of God on earth and a righteous name are not merely fancy claims. We must work on noticing belief and letting it go with truth. This is what becomes what I say, that we all have to be bathing ourselves in belief. It is constantly accumulating. All right? We must work on noticing belief and letting it go with truth, and become aware of the cliches we have labeled ourselves with and let them go. It's a lifelong study, okay? Every week, every day, we'll be doing some of this. Number 8, and this is something that people don't study, but we had a whole class on it last week, pedagogy, right? The science of teaching is also in the science of learning. Learning how to teach, we must also learn how we actually learn. By the way, learning how to learn is actually something that is also mirrored very heavily by the Indian yogis, and not just the Indian yogis, but the Sufic orders. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The Sufic orders, and Idris Shah actually has a book called "Learning How to Learn." It's great, but Learning how to teach, we must also learn how we actually learn, what pitfalls we may be prey to become more evident, the more familiar we are with the many techniques. So, in other words, the more that you learn about how to learn, how things are being taught, how then you apply to yourself. How do I learn best? Then you start to see the actual pitfalls that may be happening. You know what I'm saying? Also, learning to share sincerely is in a judgment of what ought to be shared. This is to be studied too. Okay. Number 9. Okay. Talent. We must engage in many disciplines to find and hone our talents. This is something that I think in the history of me teaching, I find that my students do the worst. Besides probably a number 2, close number 2 behind taking notes. Right? In my years, students in the classroom, I don't know why I can't get them to take notes. You know what I'm saying? Even now, you could record me in the classroom, and most of them don't do that. But the thing about it is, we must engage. Let me read this first and go in and elaborate. We must engage in many disciplines to find and hone our talents. It is through our talents that we will create sharings for the betterment of all. We must be aware of our talents with a humility that does not overrate them, yet does not underplay them as well. See, I had the humility thing in here. See, years ago, this was the right thing. You know, unbelievable. It's eerie and a little bit creepy how so much of what I'm reading here is relevant. You know, very creepy. You know, it's like I'm God or something. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is that everyone needs to be developing their talents. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even in this quarantine, even with all the things I told you to do, there should be something that you try to pick. So I'm training heavy in the martial arts and doing all these other things, but I'm still trying to add talents that I've always enjoyed and stuff. For me, even though I've been in hip hop all these years as a writer, you know, making it so I even made my own element of hip hop and being creative as a journalist and a writer in the journalism field and making it an element where it's creative. I've always tried to be creative in other areas, right? And to me, that doesn't mean doing a different element. I'm not interested in rapping, you know what I mean? Even though I come out in a couple of records, then, you know, check for me. But the thing about it is thank you for the rim shot. The thing about it is that try to pick out something to try, test out the talents, you know? For me, it's, you know, learning a musical instrument, you know? And I've been dabbling with a certain musical instrument, you know, and I don't even name it though because it's a personal thing. It's just doing it for myself, you know what I mean? And I try to spend, which I haven't done in the last couple of days and stuff like that, but I try to, you know, engage into that. And a lot of it though is a mixture because YouTube has so many things. You can actually learn a musical instrument. So combining with trying to take lessons on YouTube and then also combining with just playing music and trying to just adapt along to it though, and embellish on top of songs and stuff has been, you know, rewarding and just giving me a different scope of thought, you know. And the last thing, this is something that I think people don't think about, and all of these things though should be things that you expound on, like all the things in this justice curriculum, these 10 things you should be studying but also be writing about in your journals. Okay, you shouldn't be having understanding though, and then kind of forget it, because that's why people become inconsistent as well. You ever notice, like, one of the reasons that we're consistent is because we knowledge 120, and so what you're not realizing is that a lot of understanding is already attached. It's actually attached to the memorization of that lesson, and so you think that you have a consistent understanding that you don't forget, but the truth is, a lot of understanding is going to get lost if you're not writing it down. You know, I'm putting it down. You know, like, why was Dumore so efficient? You know, why was Firstborn Prince so efficient? Because they wrote down so much of their understanding. You know what I mean? They didn't let it fall by the wayside because you can't forget stuff. You know what I mean? Just like I had no idea that this plus lesson I wrote over 10 years ago is so relevant right now. You know what I mean? And I didn't even pick it because I didn't read it. I just picked it right. I picked it before the class because I knew that it's a beginner lesson. You know what I mean? I didn't know it's relevant. So the last one, right? Oh, John, please expound on that because there's a lot of things in there that I want to unpack in what you just said. Explain what you mean by you end up reliving or repeating. Okay? So he said, archiving my own history is something I find difficult. I tend to end up reliving or repeating. You know what I mean? Yeah, free, you know, whatever materials you have. You know what I'm saying? Like, if people do it audio level, you know, nowadays I could see that people have an audio journal, right? Just remember, you know, and recite it that way, you know. You do it all kinds of ways you want, right? You know? But here's the thing, right? The mental of the student, and I mean M-E-T-T, right? Wow, I didn't even know I had builds on the MySpace ciphers. It's crazy, you know. But one of the things that's crucial, right, is the student. Look, all of us though. This is not just the student, but everyone has to be. All of us are going to make mistakes, and all of us go through life issues that are insurmountable. That we don't want to be there. We just want it to continue, and we want to progress from there. But we have to have the mettle, M-E-T-T-L-E, to have the resolve to actually be in the moment and actually live out those things and see deeply into what we had just lived. You know what I mean? And the truth is that when you write, though, you have to engage in that experience again and again. And when you write in your journal, one of the ways to help you not just relive it and repeat it, and I hope that I'm answering this correctly with what you're trying to say here, because it's something that I've heard said and explained this way as far as a problem. So I'm answering to that what I think it is. It happens often. Is I don't think anyone should write about their life in their journal without having a commentary and having the fortitude to say what they intend to do and how they intend to deal with it, even if the answer is, I don't know all that I'm going to do with this, okay? Or I don't know how I'm going to deal with all this, right? And how I'm going to engage in dealing with this. You can't be afraid to write or be afraid to experience looking back on what you've done and not having the complete answer yet. Okay, you have to have the strength. That's what develops the strength and the confidence you have. Okay, it isn't just in having a short memory. You know what I mean? It isn't just in having a short memory. You know, it's a way of dealing with all of us. You know what I mean? So I would say, like, when you're writing these things and you're worried about reliving or repeating them, the thing is that you have to look at, are you what has happened that you have become susceptible to just the thought of what has happened, being a problem. You know what I mean? That the thought of the wrong things done in the past, just by them being uttered, could cause you to repeat them in the present. You see? That means that the past is extremely powerful and has to be dealt with. You know what I mean? It has to be dived in and it has to be dealt with. And I've always been one in favor of tackling that, embracing that, you know? Yeah, everybody's on the list. Just email me, okay? And any of the materials that I have, just ask me, and I'll send them to you and stuff, okay? Again, you guys know, you know my email, okay? Because I can't, just like Dark Kim knows, I didn't learn anything from the elders by going and hoping they give it to me. I had to go get it, you know what I mean? Including the things that they wrote, I had to go get it, you know what I mean? So I want you to have some kind of way of saying, like, yo, Sunez, do you got this? Like, can I have that thing? And really ask for it. Go, come and go get it, you know what I mean? But, and number 10 is not studying and writing in the journal. It's not. all of these things should be studied and written about in the journal. You understand? I just took that pause because that comment came up. But all of these things in there, I haven't said number 10 yet. All of these things should be in your journal. They should be dealt with. They should be approached. They should be explained. You know what I mean? And you can't be afraid of writing in a journal about your life and saying, I have no idea. Because that's making the question is how you get the answer. And you could start with a bad question. I have no idea what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do? And it could develop every single day into something deeper and more profound. No, that's peace. That's peace. No problem. No problem. But it could develop into something more profound. So, you know, definitely don't you know what I mean? You know, embrace all that's happening. And I'm saying that from experience. So there's a lot of, you know, hellish things. And all of us, though, with this, you know, in this quarantine and stuff, we may go out into that world and realize a lot of horrible things have happened that we didn't even know happened. You know what I mean? How many people that we knew and were connected with that we didn't know succumbed. You know what I mean? So, you know, how many businesses and how many people's lives have been totally upended. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a totally different world once we go out there and start going out there daily. Right? But the last one, to make it positive, though, because if your journal experience is all negative, that'll say something too. Like maybe you ought to do something positive and say that you're going to do something positive in it. You know what I mean? The last one is, number 10 is love. The relationship of family, the creation of God and earth is the reality of all things. We must study whom we share our deepest intimacy with and not merely expect to be loved, but develop self into a person worthy of love. This is done with studying the ideas of intimacy, relationship, care, and sincerity. And that is always relevant. Because once you stop studying that, and once that there are holes in that, there are always possibilities of corruption. Right? Sometimes you are loving, and sometimes it is not well received. Right? We have to study all of that, you know, and not just become a miser. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know what I mean? You know what though? You know, for me, you know, I do all of my writing on a computer, you know, computer, phone, all of these books I published and everything like that, articles. But the personal writing that really, the personal writing that becomes the exercise, like, you know, the gym is always the journal. And I always keep my journals physical, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, you always want to keep, you know, do something. So keep something physical, make some nice composition book. Nice. This is the 54th book I've written. That one's done already. But it actually had, what's interesting about that is a note. I write about the books I read, and I wrote a 3,000 word piece in Rakim's new book because I had so many thoughts about it that I had written them all in a journal. So I didn't know I was writing a piece on that. I just thought, like, you know, the gods and nerds were doing the 5% media, so I was like, okay, let me write about this now. You know what I mean? And I opened the journal and I took out a lot of the ideas that I had written over the days on the book in there. So that's where it becomes a direct thing. But you should be writing about all the things. And when you're studying things, you should be looking at the subjects you're studying. You know, what are you studying about love, though? You know what I'm saying? Is it just listening to soul music, or is it watching, you know, romance dramas, or is it really studying the ideas of it, though? Do you even have an idea about it? The talents, talents you're engaging in? You should write about these things first in your journal as a way of optimism. Like, what could be the next thing that I'm gonna engage in to test out what I can do? You know what I'm saying? These are things you mull over in your journal. Right? So the journal shouldn't just be negative. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't just be negative stuff. You know? reliving horrible events. It also should be what you've lived that was good, the things that you were excited by, the things that you enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? You enjoy a great album, write about it. You enjoy a great movie, write about it. Why did you enjoy it? You know what I mean? Really anything could be analyzed with this knowledge of self. You know? But the reason I made this justice curriculum is for you to focus on the broad diversity of things that could be dealt with. You know what I'm saying? Did you ever write and open that journal and just write about what are the talents you think you have? We talked about humility. Well, write about the talents you have and actually gauge it, you know? And what you think you're good at and what you actually are good at. And sometimes there are different levels of perception. You know what I mean? And how would you gauge that? So all these things can be written about. All of these things should be engaged with. You know what I mean? And we need to really start studying them in different ways, though. So, like, if you have we have experiences with love within the experience of it, relationships and things, right? Well, what about studying love on different levels, writing about it, reading about it, taking different perspectives, and watching. Maybe you never watched romance novels or an old school novella, those things. That's what my daughter's got me into. She's got me into watching all these great Korean dramas. You know what I mean? So I'll probably finish catching up with her after the class is over here. You know what I mean? But again, all of these things, the arts, all of these things extend the palette. And when you extend the palette, you become more than a limited person. You become someone that really is a true and living God, able to understand a broad range of things. You know what I mean? Okay, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely a schedule always keeps things in hand. You know what I'm saying? My schedule always is corrupted. You know what I'm saying? It's always corrupted. If I look at it as a thing that has to get done, so my schedule is more like the things that I intend to do. So the main broad thing that breaks up my schedule is now in this quarantine, is the times that I spend on the Instagram live, having visual chats with my two daughters. So I try to plot my day where I train as early as possible and then work as hard as I can, though, because the free time for me, though, will be when I'm talking to them. You know what I mean? And then I would have completed all the tasks at hand. You know what I mean? And then using in the quarantine, using certain exercise. Why do you think? Listen to what I said. Like what I said before. I'm having an intense training session in the morning. But throughout the day, though, because probably that training session, which includes a lot of different things, I get about 200 push-ups done among weightlifting and all these other things that I'm doing, right? Weighted squats, all types of stuff, jump rope, HIIT training, and then martial arts, of course, weapons and all this other stuff. Throughout the day, the sets of 50 push-ups that'll get me 300 and add up to 500, the 300 that's left that add up to 500, I'm using them to actually reignite me. So once I lose track, once I lose focus, I'm using that to spark me back up. So you have to make triggers to get yourself to build stronger. What are the triggers that you use, though, to reignite yourself so that you don't, just wither away, because we're in our homes, though. It's comfortable. You know what I mean? Right? If not, though, we could just wither. I just wither away here and I just watch, Jordan clips waiting for the Last Dance. You know what I mean? The next set of Last Dance episodes. Right? Which is, by the way, fun as hell, though. I've been watching, just as palette, the creativity of Michael Jordan has always been a great, inspiring palette. I've been watching clips of the entire season, that Last Dance season, every clip, all the clips of him in every single game, while I'm watching this Last Dance season. So, because they have that on YouTube too. So. Yeah, Absolutely, God. Like people, Darkim, you're totally right. Like, why did I teach you guys in the classes sessions before? Look through the notes about the complete breath. This is a lung disease. We have to keep our lungs strong. But you know how we don't know if you think that you've been profiled now, what'll happen though when we're forced to go out to work and then we still get profiled? You know what I mean? So, there's a lot of things that we have to be strong. We just have to have a strong will, strong bodies. You know what I mean? And it's not the time to be, all these treats, all these snacks, all these goodies. You better start treating them like cheat meals. You know what I mean? Right. Again, on a side note with the Jordan, The Last Dance, I think there's a YouTube. They put it in a playlist though, not the 97-98 season, all 103 games. All the Jordan clips. If you watch those, they'll really supplement the Last Dance documentary really well. Like, any season of Jordan is going to be worth watching and stuff. But it's how you use the creative, all the creative things to supplement you. You know what I'm saying? Right. Or just don't have any cheat meals. Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice though. But for a lot of people though, right now, that's like a fantasy land. You know what I'm saying? And we also have to look at diet too, because some people think what people eat daily to me is what people eat as their regular meal to me is like a cheat meal. You know what I'm saying? So some people's daily meal is a cheat meal to me. You know what I'm saying? Right? And some people eat salads with so much stuff on it that it's hardly healthy that I think it becomes a cheat meal. You know what I mean? Okay? But yeah, we have to be vigorous in some kind of way. We have to be vigorous in some kind of way because this isn't a one-time thing where we survive this virus and this virus is gone. Let's say that happens though. The virus is gone. COVID-19 is not an issue anymore when we go out there, right? Let's just say. That doesn't mean that there won't be another issue of some other proportion. What should be recognized is that anything could be an issue and everything is up for grabs, right? Yeah. But everyone needs some kind of motivation, you know what I'm saying? So for me, a lot of my motivation is not really food. I burn fat very well, so like if I'm eating as much as I can though and have a cheat meal, I still end up just at like 13% body fat. You know what I mean? And if I eat light and just really go in, I'm at like 12%, and could go down even to like 11 stuff easily. So I like to keep between 12 and 13 anyway. But again, email me so I can give you that plus lesson. That way you can have it in your own hands and stuff. There are a couple of other plus lessons here. I'm going to go through every week, go through different ones, and some of them aren't even digitized yet. So I'm going to do that so that way you can have it and just not leave it like this, because these papers are withering away. You know what I mean? They're turning into constitution. They're constitution worthy over here. You know what I mean? Let's see. Okay, let me just copy and paste what we actually did here. Okay, so So we're on today's mathematics of wisdom, understanding, right? All being born of power, right? I don't have the time now because we're like 20 minutes left. But one of the builds is to go through my Supreme Mathematics build, because I've always had unique words and phrases for the Supreme Mathematics. And that would take too long, and I don't want to rush through all that. You know what I'm saying? That would be sloppy to do all that. That's a good question. You know, let me just copy him. Wait, don't forget. Peace, Sierra. For anyone that just coming in, like Sierra, you know, if there's anything that you just want to ask, again, with the live online, I stay for the 3 hours exactly. So at that 10 o'clock, you know, I'm definitely gonna ditch all yous. If we're in the classroom, though, I can't really ditch you guys. I've never succeeded well in that. But okay. Let me go backwards to answer that. You know what I mean? Well, Real Hip Hop 216, can we build online? I'm online now, so let's build. I have like 20 minutes left in the class. You know what I'm saying? And thank you. You know what I mean? I feel appreciated. You know? Okay, you said because the jungles have all the exotic fruits. Okay. Okay. So you're saying why is the best part? Yeah, it's not the best part because of the landmass and the quality of the landmass only. It's the best part because of what has been engaged with in that area, right? So when we talk about Mecca, we're talking about by the equator. We're talking about the history of civilization all interacting there. So, and all the histories that we know, all the documented histories, you know what I mean? Yeah, you don't have to ditch now, here. You can. Oh, Clara, I'm reading. Why am I reading your name wrong? I thought it was an I. So yeah, I have to wear. I should wear my glasses. I'm so nearsighted that I have to reach here. But Clara, yeah, any questions that you have offhand, I can definitely answer. You know, don't feel constricted by the time and stuff. You know, I'll answer everybody else's stuff quick, and then yours I'll give leeway too. But again, when we're analyzing 120 and stuff, we can't always look at things. You want to look at things from all angles. So if it's not physical, like you're looking at like places like South America as a landmass, Africa, when we go down into Nubia, they have so much more. Then why is this the root of civilization, right? Why is it, and you're thinking like, what is most plentiful? The thing is, though, is that we have the interaction of all the history. Let's just say on that, we work our way backwards. Let's not just jump back to the time, but also work our way backwards. When we look at the interaction of history, all of the interaction of history of civilizations is interacted through that area, right? So the foundation of the Western world, right, the last 6,000 years plus, the foundation of the Western world is literally through that Mecca. So you have the areas of Egypt, you have all these areas, it's still around that area of Mecca. So when we have the Egyptian mystery school system, it's still in those areas. So it's really about that. It's really about that specific area of North Africa. You know what I mean? And Mecca was certainly, be in line with North Africa. But there's no other way of dealing with that. You know what I mean? It's pretty much a basic answer. It's just a perspective of looking at it. It's really not the plentifulness, of the landmass. Does that answer the question? You say you like dates, though, but what do you mean by dates? Like the historical dates and things like that? I mean, if we look through all the dynasties, when we go back and we start to study the dynasties of Africa, they're all being, even if they come from Nubia and they go upward, right? Just like who's it that said this? T.O.P said this. I'm forgetting his apprentice said this too, but in the Star of Deep Beginnings. All of this branches into the flower, you know what I mean, that becomes Egypt, you know what I'm saying, and becomes that area of North Africa, you know. So when we look at the history of Mecca, it always is that spot, you know, and a lot of it has to do with the spot, geographically being near the equator and being in Africa, but by the equator. You know? Okay. Well, the first thing, real hip hop, is like these classes are online right now, right? And so make sure that you go back though when all of this accumulates online after it's posted and all 3 hours get online. Go back and start watching some of these classes. Email me, right? And email me, and then let me know who you are and stuff like that. Because all I know is that you're real hip hop. I don't know anything else. All right. Let me know about your experience, what you're dealing with, or what you want to learn, and who you are. Because I don't know. A lot of this stuff is mystery. That's why I give very general answers when I'm building in these classrooms online here. You know what I mean? Even when we take this back into the school building, a law school in Mecca, the deeper answers will be to the students that I see in the classroom. And if there were deeper answers that were to take, I would probably take it to the student individually. You know what I mean? Because the way it really works, the core, getting this knowledge itself isn't just learned in that particular classroom session. The classroom session is where you propel yourself to the direction of study and the direction where you need to show and prove, and the self-study, and then the interaction offline or outside of the classroom with the said teacher / enlightener that is taking you through 120. Okay? Right? So that's what's important. And because the internet and everything is so mysterious, I don't know who's who and what's what. So you gotta let me know. You know what I mean? You gotta let me know. In the history of teaching a lot of school in Mecca, people that walk in, I don't know anybody until I know you, right? Just like anything in real life. So I have to get to know you. So there's a process, right? So we try to make that process somewhat through that email where we can start engaging in that process where I could, learn who you are, right? Find out who you are, okay? So we want to be as detailed as we can, as we can, all right? So just as a reminder, though, there's a lot of new reading material in the 5% media, right? I don't know how anyone is not in this quarantine without things to do. You know what I'm saying? Right? And you have to, a lot of us have to learn to be productive. The way the Western world works, though, if we're working at jobs and stuff like that, especially if we work at this job, we forget how to actually study because we usually just spend time trying to waste the time, instead of using the time. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, click like. If you dislike it, don't click dislike. Tell me why you dislike it, right? And then we can exile you in some kind of way. Email YouTube and ask them how can we exile people, in a fine mist, in a fine mist click, right? But yeah, there's just so much to do that it just becomes, yeah, so in these last 10 minutes, though, let me know if there's any question, though. Today's mathematics is wisdom, understanding, all being born of power, right? And a lot of times, mathematics like that are very confusing to try to build. They don't have a succession where, everybody that builds them, they're usually telling me like something corny. Like, you take your things, your ways and actions that you understand and you get power. You know what I mean? Like, it becomes a sentence that doesn't make any sense, it's not really usable. How many times do we see builds that we can't really use, and can't really take into our day? And what is wisdom, though? Something that is accumulated over a long period of time, right? So the accumulations over a long period of time, though, that now become attached to understanding, right? That's what develops and borns one's power. I talk about he observe Ramadan, you know, because it's like observe Ramadan. Well, like what in Ramadan you need to look at, you know, living God. Hmm? Now, if somebody goes, I do like Ramadan, and I'll fast a certain way like they do because I like that engagement. I guess, you know, because you're taking out a ritual. But if you observe Ramadan, that means you're actually doing an entire religious ritual. So, I'm keeping real. I don't even know the entire process of that, you know. But I know that that's, you know, you're dealing with some religious stuff because what would be the outcome? Are you expecting, is that person doing all that effort so they get what? The outcome that the Muslim that engages in it sincerely, the outcome that he expects from who? Allah, the unnameable, the whatever, right? So, yeah. Okay. Definitely, I'll look for all the emails. Yeah, I always do. Yeah. I've been getting more now, but I've been working my way to answer them. Yeah. So if he's observing stuff, like, you know, that's real questionable. You know what I'm saying? Everybody talks about, I heard one God do this, I heard one God do that. What's their definition of who God is, though? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. How does we do anything? Rick Faye, that name is not familiar to me. Yeah, I don't know who Rick Faye is, though. You know, I see in a search. I guess he's does the Filipino boxing. I don't know who he is. Yeah. I don't know about him. Yeah, but fasting is a 5%. It doesn't mean that you would do it that way either, though. And that's not really the fast that we always taught. You know. Yeah, that's different, though. You know what I'm saying? But I would like you to be more creative, though, and like develop your own way of fasting. You know what I mean? Like make it a thing. Make it an activity of warriorship. You see what I'm saying? And not an adapted ritual. You know? So what I'm saying is change the language, you know, and how you deal with it, because you know, I could go straight too. You know? Okay. So remember that they didn't make up fasting. You know what I'm saying? Definitely didn't make up fasting. You know? The Buddhists out there for hundreds of years were starving out there. You know? They didn't even want to step on the grass because they were destroying grass. You know? So it's definitely, we get conscious that we have to observe other people's mystery with, mysterious religions and shit. You know? But again, that's where, like, we always have to be careful, though, about the association of certain words and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. In this case, Allah, Muslim, all these things, right? So we have to be very particular what we're adapting, what we're adhering to. And giving different perspectives and challenging us all. Challenging us all in a good way. I didn't say that in a fucking dark way. People be saying stuff like that, like a dart. But Asia. So, Asia, did you just tap in right now, 5 minutes into the thing, or have you been here the whole time? The course is 3 hours. I do it 3 hours here. So, again, I'm gonna write my email because that way you don't have to scroll up or anything like that. But if anything you want to ask me, obviously I'm doing this every Thursday, right? And even when I go back to the school, I'm gonna continue doing it that way. I'll have the laptop, back to the school. I'm gonna continue doing it that way. I'll have the laptop, you have it. But also email me so I could just give you the actual copy of it. This one you don't need to. Angle of power, right? Those particular things to really boost us and get right in this quarantine. Then so now, just right there, applying the justice, okay? And then so the notes are going to be kind of skimpy because it's pretty much in there. Let me know about your stuff and stuff because remember I don't know anything except what you tell me, and it's a lot of students though. All you brothers and sisters that are on here aren't the only people. And there's something giving away free books and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I give it to you. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're here for. It's like, except in this library, you get to keep it forever. Win-win, right? The best kind of library, But right now, in this quarantine, what gym is open, right? What gym is open? There's a couple of classes before where I talked about like home workouts, and there's a lot of great stuff to do at home, though. You know what I'm saying? And now with the adding on of like gym routines and different materials you could like resistance bands, jump ropes, all these kind of things, Right? There's a lot of training that we can do at home, though. You know what I'm saying? So like, we'll get it in like that, though. If you have a little area outside that you could train in, stuff like utilize that. Keep your social distancing, But with that said, though, everybody stay healthy, strong, and keep building. All right. And until next Thursday, keep in contact with me. All right. That's a real weird question at the end. Do I build, or do you build the born cipher? Both are awkward, though. In the email, I'll let you know, okay? You build a born a reality, right? You build a born the understanding that you have, right? But with that said, stay healthy, build strong, and get on me with the questions and stuff, and we'll build continuously, all right? Peace to the gods and earths and all the righteous people that took the time out to even do the knowledge. I'm forever grateful and honored. All right? Peace.